accountability, and leading teams. Hi everyone, Dennis Gilbert. Today's topic is accountability and leading teams. Accountability may be one of the most underrated and overlooked management trouble spots. It's an issue for productivity, delegation, and it's a leadership issue. Numerous reputable firms have performed studies on management team members evaluating their performance as it relates to holding direct reports accountable. It may not be surprising to learn that there are some deficiencies, in fact, perhaps many deficiencies in these areas. Simply put, many supervisors, managers, workplace leaders who have direct reports fail to appropriately hold their employee teams accountable when they do not reach goals or objectives. What makes these studies even more interesting or harder to understand is that in many of these cases, those employees who have come up short on goals or objectives also remain eligible for bonuses or other compensation incentives. And not only are they eligible, but they often receive them. So we have to consider what can be implemented to make workplace teams more effective. From my experiences, it comes down to 5 key areas that will help make supervisors, managers, and workplace leaders high performers in the area of accountability. The first one is that they have to approach the goals and objectives process seriously, not half-hearted. They have to communicate well with specific and measurable objectives. They have to make feedback on performance regular and candid. They need to manage to the objectives and not hide from conflict. And they have to consistently role model good accountability practices. Improved performance starts with management team members taking the goals and objectives process seriously. I've personally witnessed and heard far too many stories of instances where management team members, supervisors, managers, workplace leaders not taking the goals and objective process seriously, but approaching it more half-heartedly. So one example is I've heard cases where employees receive their goals and objectives in a loosely scripted email message. That certainly is not a good approach, but more of a half-hearted approach. In another instance, I know of a case where a manager effectively printed out a document with goals and objectives, invited the employee to their office, handed them the printout of the goals and objectives with a signature block at the bottom, asked them to read and sign the goals and objectives while they turned their back to that person and continued to work on their desktop computer. None of these approaches will work well for holding employees accountable for workplace goals and objectives. It's not uncommon for managers and workplace leaders to choose to avoid holding direct reports accountable for their goals and objectives because they fear a harmful conflict situation. Of course, conflict is a natural part of us working with each other, and as a result, we need to be able to step up and appropriately manage any potential conflict that may arise during the feedback or evaluation process. Sometimes workplace leaders avoid conflict from the fear of they need to remain being well liked. And that's a valuable thought. But I often ask workplace leaders to think about this differently. And they should think about the idea that a leader may be well liked because they are also well respected. People who manage the accountability process the most effectively are those who take the goals and objectives seriously. They're also those workplace leaders who are prepared to deal with the conflict situations that may arise during a feedback or review process. And of course, this doesn't mean that the review process is limited to a very formal exercise, such as an annual performance review or semi-annual performance review. But it does mean that to the extent possible, that supervisor or manager is able to work with that employee on an objective analysis and try to avoid some of the subjective nature of workplace performance. And of course, perhaps most importantly, those employees that are not achieving their goals or objectives should not also be receiving bonuses and other incentives. If you're a workplace leader, you need to be able to work with your team and keep managing them so that they are held accountable.